Hello, good evening, and you are welcome to Switch. So I'm just going to wait for my siblings to join in. Ooh, it's yet another Thursday. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Hi, Associate. Good evening. You are welcome. Temple Chica, you are welcome. Good evening. Or it's good afternoon, rather. I'm sorry. Good afternoon. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? Let me know in the comment section how are you doing before we dive right into today's conversation. She's excited. I'm excited. I'm excited too. I'm happy to have you. Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me clearly? So I jump right in. Hi Isaac, good evening, good afternoon. You are welcome to Switch. You are welcome to Switch. How are you doing? Okay, you can hear me clearly. Sister, thank you so much. Alright. Hi Chidi. How are you doing? I've missed you. You are welcome to Switch. You are welcome to Switch. Oh, thank you, Father. Okay, so I'm just going to dive right into the conversation for the day. We have a lot of things to cover, and I want us to cover it, and let's see how much we can cover within the time frame that we have. The ink potters, good afternoon. You are welcome. Let us know where you are joining us from. Let us know your state. Let us know your country. And let us know your location, right? So my name is Maureen Oluwatobi. You can also call me your intentional sibling. I love the word intentionality because when I look across the world, I see the intentional things that exist, and I see that the creations that currently exist did not just appear coincidentally, or they didn't just appear out of nowhere. I see the intelligent design that was put into place, right, in the making of all that exists, especially in the making of humanity. So when I look at God, I see God as a very intentional being, and that is where the name Intentional Maureen was derived from. Because I am made in the image and after the likeness of my Father, He is very intentional. Therefore, I, Maureen Oluwatobi, I am very intentional. Okay? So, like I said earlier, you are welcome to Switch. Switch is an Instagram live chat intentional about improving and upgrading our mindset, shaping our actions, and influencing our lifestyle. I know that conversations are very powerful. Conversations create the platform for our minds to be upgraded. So my intention and my prayer and my goal is that via every session of Switch, somebody's healthy mindset is going to be switched on, while unhealthy mindset are going to be switched off. So we have conversations that I believe would help us think better, conversations that would help improve our mindset, because our minds play one of the most important roles, right, in how our life outcomes are going to pan out. Last week, which was the first episode, we talked about the gospel. And today we are diving into a much more personal conversation, and it has to do with our self-esteem. And the title on the flyer is Overcoming Esteem Issues, right? And this is a very personal topic, because I have seen by experience how our self-esteem can either impact our lives positively, and also how it can limit our lives especially when it is the negative aspect of esteem that we are dealing with. So today, my intention is to help everyone who is on the call, right, overcome esteem issues. Or I'm also giving everyone who is on the call an opportunity to learn one or two things that they can leverage in order to help other people who are battling and dealing with esteem issues. So people that are on the call are not necessarily people that are battling esteem issues, because we have interactions with people and we are going to keep having interactions with people. Every once in a while, you're going to meet someone who is battling with an esteem issue, someone who is battling with either low self-esteem or high self-esteem. We have to be equipped with the resources and insights that we can use to help people, right? Because we are all geared towards helping each other become better as human beings. My development is not solely my responsibility, or my personal development or personal transformation is not solely my responsibility. It's also the responsibility of my siblings. It's also the responsibility of my relatives and the people that are around me, or the people who have access to me, right? So that's also how it is for every one of us. In as much as we are responsible, right, we have the most important role to play in our development, but then we also have to make room for the contributions of other people in our journey of self and personal development. So that's why this conversation is important. You're not only helping yourself, you're helping yourself, and then you're also learning the tools, the knowledge, the insights that you're going to leverage to help other people. So today we are talking about overcoming esteem issues, and like I said, it is very personal, okay? Most of what I'm going to be talking to you about this evening is going to be from my book, Regain Your Self-Worth, right? I told you this is a very personal conversation. So, I have had a first-hand experience of battling esteem issues growing up because of a couple of things that happened. And while navigating my journey, I discovered that a lot of other people were also experiencing the esteem issues, and it was limiting their lives. So I decided to document the practices, the insight, and the different resources that I engage with to help me navigate my journey, right, of overcoming esteem issues, and I packaged it into a book. And the book has been selling for first it was released as an ebook, but then I got it published. So your girl is a published author. If you need a copy of Regain Your Self-Worth, let me know, and I'm going to give you details, or we are going to give you details on how to get the copy and how the copy can get across to you. So for the conversation of today, overcoming esteem issues, let us begin. Before we talk about overcoming esteem issues, it's important for each and every one of us to know that mankind did not make ourselves. We did not make ourselves, and because we did not make ourselves, it also means that we were not solely responsible for esteeming ourselves, right? So since we are talking about self-esteem, we are talking about overcoming self-esteem, let us start with some of the most foundational truths we should know before we get to the point of actually overcoming what we term esteem issues, right? So for starters, mankind was made in the image of God and after God's likeness. For those who are just joining the call, my name is Maureen Oluwatobi. I am a son of God. I am a Christian. I am a believer. All of the adjectives that have to do with Christianity, I have embraced all of them. So most of what I'm going to be talking about, or everything I'm going to be talking about, will be through my lens or my worldview as a believer. So as mankind, human beings, we were made in the image of God and we were made after God's likeness. Now, when God made humanity, God had an intention for how our lives were supposed to pan out. God had an idea of what He wanted us to do upon the face of the earth. But somewhere along the line, yes, we began to interact with God. When I say we, I'm talking about our father and mother, Adam and Eve, because we all have existence, or we all came about because Adam was created. So mankind, via Adam and Eve, was made in the image of God and after God's likeness, and it was God's intention that mankind that was made in His image and after His likeness should derive their worth, derive their esteem, derive their self-perception from who made them and that person is God. Now, when God made us and put us in the garden, God gave certain instructions on how we should do life. God gave us instruction on or guidance on how our lives are supposed to pan out, right? But somewhere along the line, mankind, through Adam and Eve, disobeyed the initial instruction of God. God said, I've created you, I've put you in this garden, I've given you permission to eat every fruit in this garden, but this particular one, don't touch it. But somewhere along the line, the deception happened. Eve ate the fruit, she also took it and gave to Adam. They both ate, and then the fall happened. Now, when the fall happened, a lot of things went out of course. Psalm 82 lets us know that the foundations of the world are out of course, right? So a lot of things happened. There were a lot of implications. There were a lot of abnormalities. There were a lot of distortion that was introduced into our human condition because of that fall and because of that disobedience that happened in the Garden of Eden, right? So the impact of the fall, there are many. Number one, there was the separation that happened between God and man, right? There was the place where mankind lost our dominion or our ability to actually do the things that God has called us to do, right? Or to take authority over the earth that God created and gave into our that God gave to us, right? Another very important thing that happened, that was also the beginning of the distortion of what we have termed as our self-image. Do you get? So because of the fall, there was a distortion in how mankind saw themselves. Now, even though this distortion did not start after the fall, it started even before the fall, because when the enemy, when the devil came to meet Adam, or came to meet Eve and told her to eat of that fruit, right, which was in Genesis chapter 3 verse 5, the manifesto that the enemy used was to tell her that if she eats the fruit, she's going to be like God, and then she's going to know things like God, or mankind was going to be like God and know things like God. Now, because we call the devil the deceiver, right, because he was very deceptive in his approach, and the woman on the other hand did not have the wherewithal to be able to respond to the devil or to resist him for some reasons, right? We are not going into blames this afternoon. Now, because she could not resist him, she went ahead, she ate the fruit, and then she gave it to Adam. So the distortion, right, happened when Adam ate the fruit, or the major distortion happened after Adam ate the fruit. So when I say distortion, I'm talking about the distortion of our self-image. Now, when you look at Genesis chapter 3 and you try to study Genesis chapter 3, you're going to see a couple of things that happened there. Number one, they had to hide themselves from the presence of God because, like they said, they were ashamed. That was also the introduction of fear. That was the introduction of the major separation that happened. That was also the introduction of some of the things that we call the causes that came after the fall that happened. Now, this distortion of self-image and self-perception that happened also had its own repercussions and its own disadvantages. It impacted our self-esteem, it impacted our productivity, and it impacted our relationship. Now, when you see a person who is battling with an esteem issue, these are the three major areas that these esteem issues impact in their lives. It impacts their self-perception or their self-esteem, which simply has to do with how they see themselves. It impacts their productivity, because once you're not seeing yourself correctly, in all sincerity, you're not going to effectively produce any wholesome solution, right, that would impact your life and impact the humanity. And then the third impact of this distorted self-perception is relationship breakdown. Now, when you look around you, or when we look around us, we hear of relationships that have broken down, we hear of marriages that have broken down. When all of these things happen, we can trace it, right, to the separation or the distortion that happened in the Garden of Eden. Do you get? So, again, when you hear of marriage issues, marital breakdowns, you hear of friendships that are no longer as tight as they used to be. You hear of friendship breakups. All of these things in many instances is tied, right, or can be tied to the relationships that we have with ourselves. On many levels, when you have an unhealthy relationship with yourself, it is going to impact how you're going to relate with other people. When you have an unwholesome relationship with yourself, it is going to impact how you're going to relate with other people in a much more wholesome way. So sometimes when I am conducting maybe couples counseling or relationship counseling, I've come to discover that if you want to improve the quality of the marriage, or if you want to improve the quality of the relationship, one of the most important things we focus on is to improve the quality of the individual's self-perception. Because when they perceive themselves correctly, then they are equipped and empowered to show up as their most authentic selves in the relationships that they are in, right? So our self-esteem, our productivity, and our relationship is impacted greatly when the fall happened, or after the fall happened and the distortion of our self-image happens. Now, your self-image is simply how you see yourself, right? I'm going to try as much as possible to give you very simple and basic definitions of this word, because sometimes when we look at these words and we don't know the simple definitions, they have a way of impacting us or limiting how we show up or how we even use those words. So when you hear self-image, self-esteem, what do these things mean, right? Your self-image is simply how you see yourself. Now when you pick up a mirror and you look at the mirror, right, you are seeing a reflection. That reflection you are seeing, whether it is healthy or unhealthy, is what your self-image is all about. Do you get? So when next you hear self-image, just remember that Maureen said your self-image is how you see yourself. That when you pick up the mirror, you look at yourself, the reflection that hits you, positive or negative, is the image that you have of yourself. Now, in order for a person to have a self-image, in order for you to correctly see yourself, you have to start by seeing yourself the way God sees you, right? Every self-image that we are ever going to have is going to be derived based on how God has seen us and how God has qualified us. Do you understand? So God knows you because He's the one that made you. God sees you because, of course, He is God, right? He knows you, He sees you, right? And He made you in His image. He made you after His likeness. God has an image of you. Remember, you are made in the image of God, and you are made after God's likeness. So already, God knows you. God has seen you. When God sees you, God sees Himself. When God sees you, God sees that this person, this human I'm seeing, was made in my image. I was made after my likeness. Do you get? Now, just because God has seen you, right, does not mean that your own self-image is going to automatically be corrected, or it does not mean that your image is going to level up to how God sees you. Now, the first layer is that God has seen you. You have to know that God has seen you. But then, because we are human beings and God gives us a certain level of responsibility as a person, you also have to learn how to see yourself. So your ability to see yourself just as God has seen you is the foundation of every conversation about your self-image. So when I ask you what your self-image is, or I tell you to describe your self-image and your self-perception, I want you to start by first identifying and describing yourself the way God will describe you, not just by the things that you do here, not just by the accolades and the certifications and the things that you have accrued upon the face of the earth, right? So your ability to see your ability to see yourself as God sees you is the foundation of your self-image. So when you want to see yourself, the most important thing you can do for yourself is to start by asking yourself, how does God see me? How does God see me? That when God looks at me, how does He see me? Now, if you ask yourself how God sees you, and you have not been somewhat corrupted by maybe religion or the negative words that other people have said, or teaching that has not been wholesome, If you have not been corrupted by all of these things, you're going to see yourself as wholesome. You're going to see yourself the way God sees you. You're going to see yourself as valuable, as significant. You're going to see yourself as one made in the image of God and after God's likeness. But if you have encountered maybe unwholesome teaching, you have encountered maybe an aspect of religion that is not wholesome, or you have been impacted by different traumatic experiences, the truth is your self-perception is going to be affected by those unwholesome experiences that you have been exposed to, right? But foundationally, the most important thing you must do for yourself is to try as much as possible to get into scriptures, get into your Bible, and try to see yourself the way God sees you. Now, when you get into the Bible, you might not see your name written in the Bible. For some of us, our names are not really in the Bible directly, but I know some of us on this call whose names appear in the Bible. So for many of us, when you look at the Bible, you might not see your name, and then you might be wondering, how am I sure that God is talking about me, or how am I sure that God is describing me, right, in this particular Bible verse that I have seen or that I have heard? So when you read through the pages of the Bible, God has particular words, particular descriptions that he has put forward, right, to introduce the mankind that he has created. Do you understand? So because you have your origin, you have your essence, you're not in isolation, you're part of the big picture, you're part of mankind. So there are certain descriptions you'll find in the Bible that actually relates to you. So when God is talking about light, say you are the light of the world, God is talking to all of us, mankind, all of his children. We are all the light of the world. When God is saying you are the salt of the earth, God is not just talking to a few persons, he's talking to all of his children. Do you get that we are light of the world? So when you read through the pages of the Bible, ensure that you are not looking at the scriptures, that you are finding them through a limited lens. Embrace the descriptions that have to do with God's children once you find it in the pages of the Bible. Do you get? I have in Regain Your Self-Worth, you have some of those descriptions. I've documented them for you. So if you get a copy of Regain Your Self-Worth, you're going to see those descriptions here. And then it's now your responsibility to study them and get to understand them. So I said earlier that God knows you, God sees you, right? It is now your responsibility to see yourself the way God sees you. Do you understand? So another word I want us to look at is esteem or self-esteem, because the first word we looked at is your self-image, the way you see yourself. Then what is self-esteem? We use the word self-esteem a whole lot. So what is self-esteem, right? And who has it? Who are the people that have self-esteem? Are there some people that have self-esteem, right? So like I said earlier, your self-image is how you see yourself, right, through the eyes of God, or how you are supposed to see yourself through the eyes of God. And I also said that your self-image could be wholesome and it could also be unwholesome. Your self-esteem, right, now has to do with how you esteem yourself, or how you deem yourself valuable, how you deem yourself important. Do you get? I'm going to get into some other definitions, another very interesting definition that I want you to know about in Regain Your Self-Worth. So when we talk about self-esteem, it's you see there are two words there. There's self and then there is esteem. So let's talk about esteem first before we now put them together. So what does it mean to esteem something? What does it mean to esteem someone? What does it mean to esteem anything? Esteem is simply your ability to look upon something with respect and admiration. And the reason you are looking upon this thing with respect and admiration is simply because that thing has been estimated to be valuable. So when you esteem anything, what you have said is that that thing is estimated to be valuable. I don't know if you see the word play there, estimated, esteem. Estimated, esteem, right? So I want you to write it in the comment section. Esteem, estimated, estimated, esteem, right? So when we are talking about your esteem, we are talking about the estimation that you have of yourself, right? So anytime we are talking about low self-esteem or high self-esteem, we are simply talking about the level of estimation that an individual has of themselves, or the level of estimation that you have of another person. So you can esteem yourself, you can also esteem another person. When you esteem another person, you are looking at them as though these persons, they are valuable, they are significant, and because they are valuable and significant, they are deserving of my respect and my admiration. If you're a person who is battling with low self-esteem, this description I've given now, you're going to remove yourself from that description, because you're going to say that you are not valuable and therefore you are not deserving of respect and admiration. But I'm here to let you know, that's why you're on this call today. I'm here to let you know, right, that according to God's design, you were estimated to be very valuable. You were estimated to be significant. Remember, you had your origin and your heritage in God. Like, you didn't just appear here. You carry God. Like, you were made in the image of God. So if you say that you do not have a high estimation, or if you do not have a high estimation of yourself, what you are saying is that God has a part of him that is not valuable. And then you also want us to believe that you were made from that part of God that is not valuable. And because I love God, because I've read through the pages of my Bible, I'm going to disagree with you, right? Because scripture lets us know that when God made mankind, God said mankind was good, and we were made in the image of God. When I think about the fact that I was made in the image of God and after God's likeness, it gives me a certain level of chutzpah, right? It gives me certain springs on my leg. Like I feel like my shoulders are high, right? Because I'm made in the image of God and I'm made after God's likeness, right? So esteem is to look upon something or someone with respect and admiration simply because that thing is estimated to be valuable and that thing is estimated to be very significant. So as an individual, according to God's design, you are estimated to be valuable, you are estimated to be significant. Now, just because that is what is in the Bible, just because this is the wholesome or this is the healthy truth, does not mean it is everybody's reality. The truth is, some of us have gone through different experiences that have impacted the way we see ourselves, which is our self-image, and it has also impacted the way that we value ourselves and the way that we esteem ourselves, or the amount of estimation of worth and value that we have given to ourselves. Do you get? So according to God's design, you were made worthy, and because you were made worthy, right, you are supposed to have high estimation, right, or you're supposed to have a healthy self-esteem. But traumatic experiences have a way of impacting our lives, have a way of distorting our self-image, and have a way of impacting the quality of our lives. Remember, when I started earlier, I talked about the fall and how the fall was the beginning or the origin of the distortion of our self-image. Now, after the fall happened, we have also been exposed to different experiences as human beings that have further distorted the self-image that was distorted in the Garden of Eden. Do you get? And that is the origin of esteem issues, those traumatic experiences. Now, for us all here, we may have been exposed to different experiences that impacted us differently. The good experiences, of course, will impact you in a good way. The unhealthy experiences will impact you in a way that is not so good. And all of these impacts that you are experiencing, one way or the other, you're going to see the result. You're going to see the outcomes. You're going to see the handwriting on your life, right? So esteem issues begin when an individual does not see themselves properly. If as a person you don't see yourself the way God sees you, if you don't see yourself properly through the eyes of God, that is the origin of every esteem issue. And that is why when you experience a traumatic situation or an experience that is not so healthy, it has the ability to impact you negatively. You get? So every esteem issues that mankind experiences, every esteem issues that you as a person or your friends or your siblings experience, right, can all be traced to the fact that we as the people who are supposed to esteem ourselves, right, have not properly estimated ourselves as valuable and as significant. That's for esteem. Self. Every human being has a sense of self. Remember, we are looking at self-esteem as two separate words, right? Self-esteem. We have looked at the word esteem. Now let us look at the word self. Every individual that you see has a sense of self. Every individual, whether they know it or not, even though they know it unconsciously, we all have a sense of self. We all have the way we view ourselves. We have certain perceptions that we hold about ourselves, right? We have certain images that we see when we think about ourselves. We also have certain beliefs that we hold about ourselves, and these beliefs again impact the quality of our lives, right? And then each of us, with our sense of self, or with our image, or with our sense of self, we also have different behaviors that we engage in as a result of the sense of self that we have, or as a result of our self-perception, right? So number one, we have beliefs that we have belief systems, right, that showcase, or the belief systems that we hold and we have about ourselves. We have the behaviors that we engage in based on the perception that we have of ourselves, right? We also have the unique way that we feel about ourselves, right, about our self-image. And if your self-image has been distorted because of a traumatic situation, it's also going to impact your life negatively. Do you get? So everybody has a sense of self. We have certain beliefs we have about ourselves. We have certain perceptions. When we look at ourselves, we see ourselves a certain way, right? And because we have this sense of self, whether we know it or not, it shows in our communication, it shows in our relationship, it shows in our productivity, it shows in how we do everything, even how we relate with God. It shows in how we allow ourselves, right, to enter into opportunities or positions that God has already prepared for us. We all have this sense of self, right? So when you have a sense of self, you are cognizant of the fact that you are a unique individual. And because you are a unique individual, certain things are going to be unique about you. Certain things are going to be unique about you. When you have a sense of self, you also make room for yourself upon the face of the earth. You give yourself a seat on the table of greatness. God has prepared a table of greatness for his children. But each of us must now get to that point where we give ourselves a seat on that table. Right? Now, for you to give yourself a seat on that table, you have to have a healthy sense of self. So your self is the recognition and the awareness of who you are. Right? When you have a sense of self, there are certain things that you do. You have certain responsibilities. Right? Now, one of the most important responsibilities that you must have when you have a sense of self is the responsibility of esteeming yourself. And esteeming yourself means that, like I said earlier, you are estimating yourself to be valuable and significant, just as God sees you as significant and valuable. Do you get? The fact that you have that responsibility to esteem yourself, that is the origin of the word self-esteem. You as a person, you have taken up the responsibility that God has given to you to esteem yourself, to deem yourself valuable, to deem yourself as worthy and significant. When you have deemed yourself worthy and significant and you have estimated yourself so, that is the origin of self-esteem. Do you understand? So when a person has a self-esteem, it simply means that that person has gotten to the point where they see themselves, right, as valuable. They have estimated themselves to be valuable, and they have allowed themselves to walk in this awareness of their value. They have estimated themselves to be significant, so they allow themselves to create value, right, as a result of their identity, as a result of what they now know about themselves. Do you get? So like I said, every esteem issue can be traced back to our awareness or a lack of awareness of how God sees us. So when you want to correctly esteem yourself, and you want to correctly estimate your value and your significance, you don't do it in isolation of your Creator. You don't do it in isolation of your Heavenly Father, because He made you. So for you to correctly esteem yourself, for you to effectively have a healthy self-esteem, you have to start by looking at God, getting to know who God is, and then recognizing that God made you in His image. God made you after His likeness, and God made you for dominion. God made you to represent Him upon the face of the earth. Do you get? So that is how healthy self-esteem happens. Now, God estimated all of His creations as valuable. That includes you. God estimated and deemed all of His creation as worthy and valuable. But I mentioned earlier that not everybody has gotten to that point where they correctly esteem themselves, and because of that, we are all impacted. Just because God has already estimated you as valuable and significant does not mean that you as a person, you have also met up to the standard of God, right? And it does not mean that you have that sense of value for yourself, that sense of worth and significance in yourself. So that is why we're having this conversation today, right? So it is your responsibility to self-estimate. It is your responsibility to look at yourself through the eyes of God and truly affirm and confess and declare and walk in the reality of the fact that you were made in the image, right, of God, and you are made after God's likeness. It is your responsibility. As a coach, as a pastor, as a teacher, what I can help you do is simply to give you the tools, maybe to show you the scriptures, or to give you information, right, that you have to engage with. Once you engage with these informations, maybe you read the Bible, or you gain your self-worth, or any other material that you encounter. Once you collide with all of those resources, you have to engage with it, and then you have to walk in the reality, right, of the information, the truths, or the resources that you have been given, or that you have engaged and interacted with, right? So I've given you the explanation. I don't want to say definition. I've given you the explanation of self-esteem. Now, just because self-esteem exists, just because each of us has self-esteem, does not mean that everybody is walking in their healthy self-esteem, right? So there are different types of self-esteem. We have the healthy self-esteem. That is how God sees us. That is how God estimates us. Most importantly, or foundationally, the person that has the healthiest picture of our esteem, right, is God. So healthy self-esteem is the first type of healthy esteem, right? Number two, we have low self-esteem, which is very popular. Low self-esteem. And number three, we have the inflated self-esteem. Let me try to explain them. Healthy self-esteem is simply how God sees you, right? And then if as an individual you have a healthy self-esteem, it means that you have started seeing yourself the way God sees you, or you have begun to see yourself the way God sees you, and you are consistently and intentionally improving your perception or your view or estimation of yourself. Because the more you study about God, the more you increase in your knowledge of who God is, the more your esteem is impacted, the more your self-esteem is also improved. So the more you see God, that's the more you see yourself. And scripture has let us know that there is no end to our knowledge of God. We are going to keep studying God. We are going to keep knowing God. So if we are going to keep studying and we are going to keep knowing God, it also means that we are also going to keep studying and knowing ourselves. And we are going to keep encountering new truths, new revelations, and new possibilities about our person and our personality. So healthy self-esteem is where you are seeing yourself the way God sees you, and you are walking in the reality, right, of what you have seen. Unhealthy self-esteem is unhealthy or low self-esteem is when your estimation of yourself is very low. Remember, healthy self-esteem is when it is balanced, where you are seeing yourself the way God sees you, you're estimating yourself correctly. But then low self-esteem is when your estimation of yourself is very low, and because it is very low, the confidence that you have to do the things that you have been called to do is also very low. So like the phrase low self-esteem, you can see that something is low. That thing that is low is simply your awareness and your recognition of your worth and your value, and the confidence that you have in yourself. That is what is low. So when you see a person battling with low self-esteem, it simply means that the person has a low estimation or a low view of themselves, and because they have that low estimation and low view of themselves, their lives are impacted negatively, their productivity is hampered, their relationships are also unwholesome, right? Or most of their relationships are unwholesome, because sometimes bad people also have friends. Yeah. So when a person is battling low self-esteem, their estimation of themselves is very low, the estimation of their value and their worth and significance is very low, and the confidence that they have in the gifts and the abilities and all of the deposits that God has made in their life is also very low. Do you get? Now we have low. The other extreme is now what we call the inflated self-esteem, and most times how we describe them, we simply say that the person is proud or the person is arrogant, right? When a person has an over bloated estimation of their value. I don't know if you have met those people. Those people who have very bloated, arrogant perception of themselves. And how you're going to know that a person has an over bloated estimation of themselves is when they are consistently trying or attempting to bring other people down or to put other people down. Once you see such a person, just know that that person has an over bloated estimation of themselves. Do you get? They are constantly trying to put other people low. They are constantly trying to talk about the flaws of other people. They are always trying to show the weaknesses of other people. They never put themselves in a place where they contribute to making other people better. They want everything to revolve around them. All of the attention, all of the applause, everything, they want it to revolve around them. When you see a person, right, who has all of these descriptions that I've given, there's a high chance that that person is battling with esteem issues, right? But the unique labeling of that person's esteem issue is what we call inflated self-esteem, where they have an overestimation of their worth, of their importance and their value. Now the difference between an inflated self-esteem and the healthy self-esteem is that a person who has an inflated self-esteem does not see the good in other people. They rarely see the good in other people. They like to listen to themselves. They like to control everything. They want everything to revolve around them. They never speak good of other people. They are constantly pointing out the flaws and the values of other people and blaming other people for different things. They never take responsibilities for their flaws, their mistakes and their limitations. Do you get? And they are constantly bragging about their achievements and their past glories and the things that they have achieved. All of these are descriptions of a person with an inflated self-esteem. Now a person with a healthy self-esteem recognizes that, okay, I'm not the only person who is worthy. I'm not the only person who is valuable, in as much as I know that I'm valuable, I know that I am worthy, I know that I'm significant, but I'm not the only valuable person. I'm not the only worthy person, right? That person also sees that there are a lot more people who are valuable, there are a lot more people who are also significant, and they try as much as possible to make room and celebrate the uniqueness of other people. They don't attempt to bring other people down intentionally, right? They don't attempt to make themselves the center of every occasion. They don't attempt to make themselves the most important person in the room whenever they get into the room. There's how you can carry yourself with confidence. There's a way to carry yourself with confidence and charisma when you get into a place, when you have a healthy self-esteem. But check yourself if at any point in time you are now downplaying the value and the significance of other people in that room. Right? So when this when you see a person with a healthy self-esteem, you will recognize them because they celebrate the good in others. They celebrate the value in other people. They celebrate the worth in other people. They even try as much as possible, right, to help more people discover the value that they have. When they see a person who has worth, who has value, they celebrate it, and then they constantly contribute to making other people better, and they try to make other people look good. But this is not something you're going to see common with a person with an inflated self-esteem. And then you rarely see it. You rarely see a person with low self-esteem, right, creating an enabling environment for other people to flourish. Because if they can't flourish, or if they don't even see themselves as valuable, it's going to impact how they are going to see other people, and it's going to impact the kind of environment they are going to create for other people who they see as valuable to flourish. I hope you're following. So these are the three major, right, or the three types of esteem issues that exist: the low self-esteem, the inflated self-esteem, and the healthy or balanced self-esteem. Now, I started by saying that everybody that God created is valuable, is significant, and God has deemed us all worthy, right? And God gave us himself as a signature to show that we are valuable and we are worthy. And he did that by simply making us in his image, after his likeness, right? So much so that when the fall happened, he had to come as a man to redeem us to our place where we were in him, so we could live the life he intended and destined for us to live. So it is not God's intention for any of his children to be grappling and battling with esteem issues. Because if you're constantly grappling with esteem issues, it means that the dominion mandate that God has given to you is not going to be manifested. It means that the advancement of God's kingdom, which you have a role to play in, would not be manifested in your own circle and your own environment, right? And we are all valuable, we are all unique, and we all have a unique contribution to play in what God is doing upon the face of the earth. So God is interested in helping you regain your self-esteem. God is interested in helping you see yourself correctly. God is interested in helping you heal the perception that you have of yourself, right? So you can start living the life that he intended for you to live. Now, if you look at yourself based on the description that I've given earlier, and you know that you're battling the different esteem issues that I listed: low self-esteem, which is low self-confidence in yourself, right, as one made in the image and after God's likeness, or you are battling with the inflated self-esteem. That one is usually difficult for people to diagnose themselves as people that have healthy inflated self-esteem. It's easier for a person with low self-esteem to say, oh, I feel like I know that I am battling low self-esteem. But I see those inflated people, they will never agree that there's anything wrong with them, right? Until maybe something has happened, and then they are forced to acknowledge the inflatedness of their esteem issues. So if you're battling esteem issues, or if you're here and you want to know some of the signs of low self-esteem, like I'm going to introduce you to some of them. So like I said at the beginning of Switch today, I let you know that the conversation we're having today is from my book, Regain Your Self-Worth, right? And which is basically helping you see yourself the way God sees you, with practical steps that can help you actually regain your self-worth, see yourself the way God sees you, and begin to correctly estimate yourself. So if you need a copy, let me know, and we're going to send you details on how to get a copy or copies. And let me also pause here to say that my goal and my intention is to get this book into the hands of students in primary schools and also secondary schools, and also the university, tertiary institution. So if you happen to know any organization or any individual who is looking for a material that they can give to students to help them battle or deal with low self-esteem or a negative self-image, please reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to partner with any of such organizations or any of such individuals. Okay? Thank you. So, some of the signs of low self-esteem. I'm sweating. Some of the signs of low self-esteem. Number one, if you are constantly battling with negative self-talk. What do I mean by that? If every time you talk about yourself, every time an opportunity arises for you to talk about yourself, bulk of the things that come out of your mouth about yourself is negative, then that's a problem. All right? If you are constantly talking down on yourself, talking down on your abilities, talking down on your achievements, talking down on, if they give you a compliment, you want to dodge it, you want to escape, you want the ground to open, so you enter just because you want to hide, right? If that is you, you're battling esteem issue. If the perception you have of yourself is also very unhealthy and very unwholesome, you feel negative, right, and unwholesome about yourself, it's also important for you to identify what the cause of that problem is. It might just be that you're battling low self-esteem. If you are constantly apologizing for everything, I used to be here. I used to be here. Every little thing I'm apologizing for, things I did, for things I did not do. I'll just apologize. Oh, before I say something, I say, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I want to say something. I'm sorry, I don't know if this idea or suggestion is going to make sense. I was there. Constantly apologizing for everything. It wasn't until it began, I think some people began to point it out to me. Some of my close friends began to point it out. Even God began to point it out to me. Why are you apologizing? You didn't do anything wrong, right? So because I've walked that shoe, I'm also quick to recognize it in other people who are constantly apologizing for things. If you are a person who is constantly aggressive and hostile towards other people, it might just be that something is wrong somewhere with your self-esteem, right? If as an individual you lack boundaries and you don't know how to communicate to other people that they might have crossed your boundary or they are doing something to you that you don't like, then it might just be that you do not have a healthy estimation of yourself, right? So most times, one of the ways that you can identify that you're battling esteem issues is when people are constantly coming at you. They want you to do things for them at every point in time, and you do not have the fortitude, or you do not have the mind to say, oh no, I'm overwhelmed at this point, right? If you can't say no, then you fall into this category. Something is wrong. If you do not have boundaries, something is wrong, right? If you have boundaries and you're not able to communicate to other people that they have gone beyond the boundary that you set, then something is wrong. If you are constantly feeling insignificant and unworthy, something is wrong somewhere. If you are constantly feeling insignificant, I know that once in a while, right, the thought will come up, maybe when you're trying to achieve a feat that is higher than your previous feat, you're trying to attempt something bigger than you had done in the past, that feeling is going to come. That imposter syndrome is going to arise. Am I able to do this? Am I able to achieve this? Am I able to do that? That once in a while happens to even the best of us, right? But if you are constantly feeling insignificant and unworthy when opportunities are presented or when things are happening, then it might just be a sign that you're battling with low self-esteem, right? If you constantly engage in negative habits that impact your life, your body, and yourself negatively, because again, one of the reasons why we engage in these habits is because we do not see ourselves as valuable, and because we don't see ourselves as valuable, we allow ourselves engage in things that do not build us up. We engage in things that does not help us become the best version of ourselves. So if you're constantly putting your hand or your leg or your mouth into what I'm going to term bad habits, then my brother, my sister, something is wrong and it has to be fixed, right? If you are constantly how do I put this now? If you never prioritize your needs, right, you are constantly making space and making room for other people's needs and other people's feelings, even at the detriment of your health, at the detriment of your mental state, at the detriment of your health, then it's an indication that you are battling and you're grappling with esteem issues, right? If you are constantly looking for opportunities to withdraw from social circles or social gatherings, or if an opportunity arises for you to interact with people in a social environment, and your initial response is to withdraw, then it might just be right that you're battling with esteem issues, especially when it has become chronic, right? I know, again, now for some of these things, they are healthy things, right? Some of these things can happen in a way that is not so healthy. But if it has now become too much, if it has begun to limit you so much, then you might just have to check it, because something is wrong, right? So when you're constantly trying to withdraw, right, or you battle serious social anxiety, right, then it might just be that what you're saying to yourself, or the mental talk, right, that you're having with yourself is that I'm not worthy to be in this environment, I should not be here, right, because every other person is worthy, every other person is valuable, every other person is significant, I am not, so why should I be here? So if that is you constantly looking to withdraw from social gatherings, then there's a problem, right? Again, another thing that happens when a person is constantly trying to withdraw is when an opportunity arises for you to communicate, for you to talk about the awesome things that you're doing, right, and you want the ground to open, so you enter. You just want to escape, you want to run away. Someone is complimenting you, someone is celebrating you, someone is talking about your achievement, someone is talking about the feats that you have achieved, but then you just want to escape, right? All of these may be signs of esteem issues. When you see a person, or if you are constantly aggressive and hostile, I know that it might look as though you are putting a shield around you. It might look as though you are preserving yourself from certain environments, but if you are constantly aggressive, then it might just be an indication of an esteem issue that you have to deal with, or that you have to heal from, right? Because there is a way to communicate your disagreements, there's a way to communicate when something is not going how it's supposed to go, or when something is done in a way that is not supposed to be done, right? So if you're constantly aggressive, if you're constantly hostile to other people, hostile to yourself even, then it is a problem. Now I could go on and on and on, and another very major one is chronic shame and shyness. I mentioned that when I talked about withdrawals, right, where you constantly want to run away from social environments. The constant fear or the constant shame and shyness that you feel, especially if it is limiting you from doing the things that you have been called and destined to do, then it is a problem. Now what is making me laugh is the fact that I'm able to come on IG Live, right, to have conversations, to talk, to share my opinions, right, to talk to you about the book that I've written, to talk to you about different things. I remember a couple of years ago, I would never have dared to come on live to do this thing that I'm doing. Let that ground open, let me enter. So from one sister to another, from one sister to a brother, I see you, I recognize you in me, I recognize your present you in my past me, right? Because I used to run away from everything that warranted me speaking up, that warranted me sharing my opinion or doing anything that's going to make every other person see me or every other person know me. In fact, one of the things I used to say many times, I used to lie to myself, and I used to believe it, that my name is Maureen, I love to be in the background, I want to support other people do what they do, I don't want to be seen. Imagine me now. Imagine carrying all of this essence that God has put inside of me, and then just shoving it behind, I'm an introvert, I don't want to be seen, I don't want to be noticed, I want to live for the glory of God, but I want to do it behind the scene. That was the lie I used to tell myself, until I was captured and I was told that you cannot hide, right? So I used to be that person who would never share my opinion, who would never raise up my voice in public to answer a question. I used to be that person who would not confidently walk from the beginning of the room, right, to the end of the room where a lot of people were there, or where a lot of people are gathered. Because if I'm that walk from the entrance to my front seat, let's say I was given a seat in front before, that walk is like walk of shame. Because I used to feel as though, oh, all of these eyes are looking at me, and what used to go on in my mind as they're looking at me, they can see my flaws, they can see my limitation, they can see my leg, they can see this. And I'm sure that while I was doing all of that, God will be looking at me and say, look at this child that I made in my image, after my likeness. What is wrong with her? Do you get? So I used to be that person who would never come on IG to come and talk to who, record video to share maybe my ideas, my opinions on different subject matters. The question I will ask myself, who is going to listen? There are a lot of thought leaders everywhere. Why should my opinion matter? Why should my voice matter? And those were the things I used to say to myself until God arrested my life and told me that, Maureen, you cannot hide. I've made so much deposit in you. So I'm giving you all of this. I'm sharing my own experiences with you, so you know that I'm not just sharing, or I didn't just write a book simply because I wanted to write a book. This is a journey that I've been on. This is a path that I've walked on. So I understand how crippling it can be. I understand the fear that comes with it, especially when, or if you're a person who has battled or experienced traumatic events that impacted your lives negatively. Right? I don't want to go into some of my traumatic experiences. We're going to have a session on healing and wholeness, I think next week or in 2 weeks. So I've had my fair share of traumatic experiences, and all of these experiences contributed to impacting the quality of my life. They contributed to the esteem issues that I experienced, right? Because when I think about myself, or when I look at myself, I remember the mistakes I have made. I remember the traumatic experiences that I have been exposed to. I remember all of the things that looked like flaws and limitations and defects in my life. And because of that, I figured there was really nothing worthy, nothing important, and nothing significant in this life, right? And if that is you, if that is where you are, I'm here to let you know that your traumatic experiences in no way, they do not in any way limit your worth and your value. Remember, I started this conversation by letting you know that you were made in the image of God and after God's likeness. So just because you have been a victim or a survivor of any unpleasant or any traumatic experience does not mean that there has been a dent on your value. It doesn't. God does not change his estimation of your value based on what you have experienced in life. Do you understand? Because when God sees you, he sees himself. He sees the person that he made in his image. He sees the person he made after his likeness. Right? So your experiences does not in any way reduce your worth. Yes, what happens is that because you know yourself, because you know the experiences, because you know how you feel, you assume that God is also going to look at you as someone who is damaged, or someone who is not healthy, or someone who is not wholesome, or someone who is not working in the full potential that they were designed to work because of something that they suffered or something that they experienced. So the journey to overcoming self-esteem is first recognizing that your value does not diminish because you have experienced different traumatizing situations. It doesn't. You get? You are still very important and still very, very valuable to the plan of God upon the face of the earth. You are still very valuable. We need you. When you look around you, you see a lot of unwholesome things happening. You see a lot of unhealthy things happening in our environment. I have an opinion, which is my opinion, my personal opinion, right? I believe that some of the problems in our world today, that the solutions have not been discovered or the solutions have not been created, they exist simply because a lot of people who were supposed to create those solutions are battling low self-esteem. They are battling from the impact of the traumatic experiences that they have been exposed to. And because they are battling with these traumatic experiences, they do not even have the stamina, they do not have the opportunity to sit down, right? Let the Spirit of God brood upon their mind in order for them to conceive these ideas they are supposed to create. So when I see darkness in a particular sector of the world, what that darkness is letting me know is that the person, the human being that God created to solve that problem, to be light in that area, has not stepped up. Is that the person has not stepped up, the person has not recognized that that is the sector that they were sent to. The person might have attempted or started something, but then the fear of getting big, the fear of going global with the solution they have will constantly keep them. So for every presence of light, to me, I believe that it is because there's absence of light. For every presence of darkness, rather, what did I say? For every presence of darkness in every sphere, in every sector, I am reminded, or I tell myself that it is simply the absence of light. Do you understand? So if you are here, you're listening to me, you're battling esteem issues, or you know someone battling esteem issues, this fight that I'm fighting, this energy that I'm exerting, this book that I wrote, the coaching sessions and the one-on-one sessions that I do with clients, is not simply because I just want to write a book, or I want to come on IG Live and show you my fine face, even though I'm fine. It's not really that. It's simply because I know how a healthy self-esteem is going to empower you as a person to create solutions that the world needs. A healthy self-esteem is going to play a significant role in advancing the kingdom of God. Do you understand? So when I'm shouting, when I'm talking, when I'm writing, it's because I know somewhere deep down that somebody that is supposed to create a solution somewhere has not created the solution. And we need that solution. So I'm not going to be self-centered and keep the knowledge or keep the deliverance that I've received to myself, because again, I don't want my voice to be heard. That's why I will write the book. I will come on IG Live. I'll come and talk about it. Right? I will hold the hands of my siblings at different points in time to help them overcome esteem issues. For every session that I have with any of my siblings, right, or anyone who comes for coaching and counseling, especially around esteem issues, right, one of the things I do most importantly is to remind them of their significance, right, their importance, the purpose they were designed for, and the role that they play in making our world a better place. So if you can hear my voice, I know my voice is already beginning to crack. If you can hear my voice this evening, or you're going to watch the replay of this session, this is me, your sister, your sibling from God, your sibling from heaven, letting you know that your voice matters. The value that you have been destined to create, we need it. The solution that only you can produce, only you can create, is lacking in our environment, and we need it. We need you, we need your idea, we need your opinion, we need your suggestions, we need the things that you're going to create. Don't self-sabotage, don't talk yourself out of all that God has destined you to be, just because you have not, you don't believe that God can use you. Why won't He? He made you so He can live through you. Why then would He use you when He made you so you could live out the life that He wants to live upon the face of the earth? Right? So please, I beg you in the name of God, this session is geared towards helping you become and see yourself the way God sees you. Most importantly, so you can step into the places that God has called you to step in. So you can create the solutions that God has empowered you and equipped you and blessed you to create. Right? Enough of my rant. So, tips on regaining your self-worth. So for those of my siblings who are just joining today, you're welcome to switch. This is episode 2. And today we are talking about overcoming esteem issues, and our conversation today is from my book, Regain Your Self-Worth, where overcome low self-esteem and silence the critical voices that live in your head. That is subtitle. This book, Regain Your Self-Worth, is geared towards helping everyone and anyone overcome esteem issues, regain their self-worth, see themselves as God sees them, right? So they can step into the places that God has called them to step into, creating the value, the impact, and the significance that God destined them to create. So let's talk about some of the tips, right? Some of the steps that you can take, some of the practices that you can embrace in order to overcome esteem issues and regain your self-worth. Number one, I might not be able to run through all of the steps that I have here, but I'm just going to share some of the very important ones with you. So when you get the book, you see more of it, right? Number one, it's important for you to get clear on what your insecurities are. Now, when you are clear, when you have identified your areas of insecurities, what is that thing that makes you downplay yourself? What is that experience, right, that makes you see yourself as insignificant and unworthy, right? You have to identify it. Now, identify it does not mean just identifying it in your head. I am a strong advocate of writing things on pen, writing things down, whether you're using your pen, your paper, or you're using your notebook, whatever it is. But I am a strong advocate of journaling, a strong advocate of writing things down. So if you are going to if you're going to be very active and intentional with yourself in overcoming esteem issues, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. So you have to be intentional, right? And put certain systems in place to make it happen. Do you get? So identify your areas of area of insecurity. That area, that thing that makes you see yourself as less valuable, right, or as insignificant. I want you to be clear and write it down in your notebook. Write it down. Now, because you have an active relationship with God, and if you don't have an active relationship with God, I'm going to advise and encourage you to develop one, because God is going to help you on your journey. You're going to need the presence, right? And you're going to need the help of God to overcome these issues. Once you are clear on the insecurities or the areas of your insecurities, I want you to talk to God about it. Now, let me also pause here to say that these things I'm sharing with you they are vital if you want to do self-therapy. You want to help yourself, right? This is self-help. If you want to help yourself, this is important. But if you need help, you need a counselor, you need a coach, you need someone to hold your hands, guiding you, right, on this journey. Of course, you can always reach out to me. It's one of the services I offer. Reach out to me and I'm going to hold your hands as you navigate this journey. So number two, you have to talk to God about your insecurities in the place of prayer. God is your Father. He's not just one far-fetched human or one far-fetched God who is not interested in your problems, or who is not interested in your life. He is actually very interested. So talk to him about your insecurities. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what you feel, right? And have a conversation. When you're talking with God or writing to God about these things, a lot of clarity is going to come. You're going to get some of the answers that you need to overcome these issues that you're battling, right? Then another very important step is for you to trace the root of this insecurity. If you can, trace the root. When did it start? What happened? What was the experience that warranted or led to that insecurity that you experienced? Now, for some of us, when we began to trace the roots of our insecurities, we discovered it was as a result of parenting gap, it was as a result of culture, a result of societal expectations, it was as a result of improper or imbalanced teaching in church, it was as a result of a traumatic experience that we survived. Maybe the first time we wanted to talk, or the first time we wanted to sing, somebody laughed at us, or the first time we wanted to do something, right, that we had never done. Maybe an insensitive adult who did not have knowledge, right, who did not have an insensitive adult, or maybe it might even be someone in your age, your peer group or your age grade, for one reason or the other, they either laughed at you or they mocked you, right? And they have not stopped mocking you. So there are different roots of these insecurities, and they are very personalized. So I want you to trace the root of your own insecurities. Where did it begin? Now I want you to differentiate. When you have written down these insecurities, I want you to differentiate between the lies and the flaws. Now, when you experience a traumatic situation, and you are talking about you're talking about the root of these insecurities, one of the things you're going to discover is that there are certain things that you have believed, certain things that people have said about you, certain unwholesome conclusions that people have made about your person. So I want you to understand, I want you to find out and differentiate all of those conclusions, which of them are flaws and which of them are lies. Now, the reason I want you to differentiate between flaws and lies is because, again, there is a layer of work that you have to do them. If it is a flaw, right, maybe you are tempted to sing and your voice is like mine, you really can't sing on key for long. When you are tempted to sing and a person said, this your voice is not it, and they laughed at you, that you can classify that under maybe a flaw, right, or a limitation as a result of your design. That one, there's really nothing you can do about it except by the intervention of the Holy Ghost, right? If it is a lie, let's say, let me also use myself as an example. Something that sounds like a lie. When I was growing up, people used to look at my legs and they used to make certain unwholesome compliments about my leg because my leg is full, right? People used to make very unhealthy conclusions and statements about my leg, and because I was younger, I was very impressionable. That impacted how I began to see my leg. It wasn't until I got older, and it wasn't until I was exposed to certain people who looked at me a different way and who looked at my legs a different way, and they began to compliment the legs. And I think I had a conversation with someone and I said, this leg, they used to insult the leg, or they used to call it yam leg. And the person said, oh, that's a lie, because the leg is also unique in its way and is not and is not a limitation. I can't remember how the person put it, but it was not a limitation. So it meant that the compliment or the statement that those people made when I was growing up about my leg was a lie, was a serious lie. Right now, there's nothing you will tell me that will make me believe, right, that it is a part of me that I should hide. Do you understand? So when you identify what is a lie and what is a flaw, you know what to debunk, you know what to improve upon if it's something that you want to be a part of you, right? So the next point is to try as much as possible to debunk and counter the lies. So for me, what helped me counter and debunk the lie that they told me about the state of my leg was now recognizing that my leg was unique, right? And it's carrying me, it's helping me do the work that God called me to do upon the face of the earth. It's letting me walk, right? It's also giving me some sort of fitting when I wear clothes that it shows. Do you understand? When I say my leg, I don't know how to describe this part of my leg. I wish I could show you guys, but there's that part of the leg, I can't remember what it is called now, right? So then I now had to counter and debunk those lies, because those legs gave me some sort of fitting. Now, for you as a person, it might not be your legs, it might be your voice, it might be your face, it might be your nose, it might be your eyes, it might be the different parts of your body, right? So I want you to counter and debunk the lies, right, that you have believed about those areas of your body. Then I want you to look into scriptures and I want you to find positive, healthy descriptions about your person. There are certain things that God has said about you. There are certain things that God has said about your person and your personality. I want you to find those things in the Bible, and then the next thing is for you to leverage the power of your words to compliment yourself and to eulogize yourself. Use your own words to feed yourself. Do you understand? Use the words that you say on a consistent basis. Say it back to yourself. I think I heard a preacher say this when I was younger, and I heard someone again say that you are most likely to believe what you say to yourself than what other people say to you. In as much as affirmation, compliments, right, from other people, they are important and they are healthy, but it must begin with you. Do you understand? So leverage the power of your words to declare and confess those wholesome things that God has said about you and about your person. Do you understand? Then another very important thing you must do on your journey of overcoming esteem issues is to know yourself. You have to conduct a self-awareness audit. Conduct a self-awareness audit, like get to know yourself. Many times when we are battling esteem issues, it's simply because we have a low awareness of everything that makes us unique, everything that makes us significant. Do you get? So I want you to conduct a self-awareness audit. What are the different parts of your person? Like, I need you to get a pen and a notebook and write down, okay, my eyes, my nose, my mouth, my hand, my leg. Do a self-audit. I want you to write down the physical attributes of your person. I also want you to write down your physiology, the organs that make up your person and your personality. Know the awesome work that your body was designed to do, the awesome work that your body is currently performing. When you know these things about yourself, it's going to become clear and obvious to you that you were not an accident. You were intentionally created by God to live the life that He destined you to live. But you have to know yourself. If you don't know these things about yourself, then what are you going to eulogize? What are you going to compliment? What will be the foundation of you regaining your self-esteem? Do you get? For you to regain your self-esteem, for you to overcome esteem issues, you have to know yourself, because the knowledge that you have of yourself that you're going to use to counter the negative words and the things that impact your esteem. Do you understand? So get to know yourself, get to know the things that make you significant, the things that make you unique. I call them your value gems. I wrote about 15 value gems here, right? Let me just tell you two. Number one, your brain is a value gem. Your brain is a machine, is intelligent. A lot happens in your brain, a lot happens in your mind, right? I want you to get to know your uniqueness. You have a unique personality. That's the second value gem. You have a unique personality, and we can use that your unique personality to improve the quality of our world if only you give your unique personality expression. Do you get? So get to know these things that I call your value gems, and when you know these things that stand you out as unique, these things that stand you out as yourself, then you can use those things to compliment yourself and remind yourself that you are valuable, you are unique, and you are significant. Do you get? So after you must have identified these things that are unique about you, the last thing I want to invite you or encourage you to do is to create a self-celebration system for yourself. Create a self-celebration or a self-complimenting schedule for yourself, where you are complimenting yourself for the things that you can do. Because you have spoken so much about your limitations, you have spoken so much about your flaws. How about we switch it? You start talking about your values, the things that you can do. So create a self-celebration system for yourself, where maybe each day or each week you're going to focus on a part of you that you have discovered when you carried out the self-awareness audit or the self-assessment audit. Do you get? So celebrate yourself for who you are, celebrate yourself for what you can do, compliment yourself for the feats that you have achieved. The fact that your ears are still working is something for you to be grateful for. Do you get? So when you create this self-celebration system, what you do is you declare your gratitude for these things that you have, for these things that are working in you. Do you understand? So celebrate yourself, compliment yourself, and be grateful to God for the entire value gem that was put together to make you. You are a complex combination of awesomeness, right? So I want you to sit down and get to know this awesomeness called you, because until you know you and you know you correctly, you're going to battle with esteem issues, and you're going to keep battling with esteem issues. Do you understand? So as you create this self-celebration system, it's going to help you improve in your awareness. It's going to help you improve in your awareness of yourself. When it helps you improve your awareness of yourself, one of the things you're going to discover is your value. You're going to discover the different points of value that you have. You're going to discover the things that make you unique. You're going to discover the unique way, right, or the distinct way that your mind functions. You're going to recognize that solution, that idea that you have, even though it might not look like or sound like what other people have said, it is unique to you, and that unique idea is what we need to solve a problem. So the most, as you discover yourself, as you discover the awesome things about you, right, these value gems I've talked about, you discover your values, right, the things that you can contribute to the world, then give yourself permission to start deploying your value. If God made you to be valuable, if God made you to be significant, start deploying it. How can you use this awesomeness you have discovered during your self-audit to improve the life of another person? I think that's the question you should start by asking yourself. How can I use my words, my mouth, to improve the life of another person? How can I use my hands to improve the life of another person? How can I use my eyes to improve the life of another person? How can I use my unique ideas to improve the life of another person? You can start with one person, right? Start with one person, but ensure that you are intentionally and consistently sharing value to people that are around you. When you do all of these things and you do it consistently, you begin to focus on your image, begin to focus on God, focus on the image that God has shown you, the value that God has declared that you are. When you begin to do all of those things, it's greatly going to help you overcome esteem issues. It is greatly going to help you regain your self-worth, so you can start seeing yourself the way God sees you. Do you understand? So if you have any question in the comment section, please let me know. You can write down your question in the comment section or using the question sticker, and I will attend to it before I run off. Your question if you have. So for my siblings who are just joining, you are welcome to Switch. I'm glad you could join us today. Switch is an Instagram live chat that happens every Thursday. It's supposed to be by 7 p.m. but I have another engagement I have to rush off to now. That's why I had to reschedule this week's episode or this week's session for 3 p.m. But I think I'm going to retain 3 p.m. I'm not sure yet. But Switch is an Instagram live conversation that is intentional about improving and upgrading our mindset, shaping our actions, and influencing our lifestyle. Switch is an Instagram live conversation that is intentional about improving our mindset, shaping our actions, and of course influencing our lifestyle. And like I said earlier, I know conversations are powerful. I know that my words are powerful, the same way your words are powerful. So we hold Switch, right, every week in order to elevate our conversations and elevate our mindset, so we can improve the quality of life that we live as sons of God. If darkness exists in your environment, it's simply because the light of God that you carry is looking for expression. So you have to shine, you have to improve, and I'm counting on you to improve. So switch is just one of the ways that I have created in order to help my siblings on their journey of living intentional and wholesome lives according to God's design for each and every one of them. So if you do not have any question, right, I'm going to see you next week Thursday, and I'm going to communicate the time. The conversation we had today called overcome esteem issues. We created the conversation from my book, Regain Your Self-Worth. If you need to buy a copy, or if you need to buy copies for people, please reach out to me and we are going to make that possible. And again, like I communicated earlier, it's my desire that this book gets into the hands of up to 5,000 students in schools, secondary schools and tertiary institutions, to ensure that a lot more persons regain their self-worth so they can live the life that they were designed to live by God. So if you know anyone, any organization who's looking for a material like this, please reach out to me and I'm going to be so grateful to you. And of course the students also will be so grateful to you. I love you, and I'm going to see you next week Thursday. See ya.